what they say, never talk about politics, religion, or sex, lest you risk damaging your friendships. But what happens when you have three people whose friendship is built on debating those very topics? One's a believer surrounded by skeptics, one's a heterosexual surrounded by gays, and one's a moderate surrounded by extremists, and they're all hardly qualified. Introducing Hardly Qualified, a podcast recorded in prosperous Calgary, Alberta, where Will Connor, Rob Walker, and Angry Duck get together every week to discuss the issues of the day. Rob's on the left, Duck is on the right, and Will is stuck in the middle. And here they are, hardly qualified to pontificate about the issues they're talking about. But if nothing else, they're entertaining.
And welcome back to Hardly Qualified, folks. Nice to see you back, or hear you back, or acknowledge you're back somehow. I guess I'll see you in the logs. That sounds really bad. Anyway. To the right, as always, is Mr. Ducky. Oh, well, I guess... Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you go, dude?
I was talking over you, so I didn't hear you introduce me.
Okay, well, say hi.
Hi.
Oh, in the subtle tones of a sex worker on the telephone. Ooh. That's awesome. Thank you. And that laughter you hear next to me, or with me, is Tommy. My...
Yo!
Tommy's actually on the same mic as I am right now, so we're not going to have the usual channel split that we normally do. Welcome. So, Tommy, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Okay. Hello. I'm 31.
How can you tell this is his first time?
A male species, and I don't know. I'm Chinese, I guess.
You guess?
Yes, that's what I was told. You know. But yep.
He could be Laotian. He's just not sure.
I'm just glad to be here. So
obviously. Didn't really think that went through. He's
no,
like,
not
I want to
really.
be a guest on your podcast. I'm like, okay. So we're going to introduce you.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Jeez. Tommy is my partner, my husband, as I've...
Partner. I really prefer partner over husband, so...
Why is that?
I don't know. Partner sounds more gender neutral, if you will. And husband is like, weird. I don't know. It's me, if you will. I don't know.
But you're male, I'm male. I mean, that makes sense.
Carry on. So, how are you doing, Dougie?
Okay.
I'm still trying to process how you think being a husband is weird.
When he refers to me as partner, I always think there's some sort of business relationship going,
that's the way I look at it too. And now that partner is ubiquitous with like homosexual relationships, I remember a couple years ago I was working at a job and I had a security partner who was with me all the time. I was telling a story about my partner, and the people to whom I was speaking thought I was telling a story about my gay lover. And I'm like,
how was the sex, eh?
Oh, jeez.
So, I'm fine. I'm tired again. I just never get enough sleep. So... if I sound incoherent, that's why. It's because I was like, oh my god.
We always sound
4 hours of
incoherent.
sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just now it's more so than normal, right?
More so than normal. What else? Anything happen new?
Yeah, you guys will probably notice that there's a voice missing, and that would be that of Mr. Rob Walker, who, given various reasons that were discussed in our previous episode, has decided to no longer host with us. He's decided to focus on his academic commitments and his career, and we totally respect that. And he was kind enough to leave this message for us, saying goodbye to you all and kind of explaining where he's coming from. So we'll just play this, and then we'll come back to us, and we'll banter about the stuff we normally banter about. Here's Rob.
Hello, very good dear friends from HQ, Will, Ducky, and listeners. This is Rob speaking. I just wanted to leave a quick message to let you know that yes, indeed, I will be leaving the podcast as a host. but I still hope to be very involved on the website and by writing blog entries and maybe even making YouTube responses if I can figure my way around that medium. Because I absolutely believe in the kind of conversation that HQ is trying to start and represents. I just found, once I sat down with my journal and considered everything that everyone had to say, that it wasn't really about fear of conflict. It was my fear, if I can put it that way, that I wasn't actually offering what I had to say from my strengths, which usually have to do with academic analysis, and then writing it out in really concise and I hope persuasive ways. That kind of thing doesn't happen on a podcast, at least not the way that I tend to think and process information. So I think that's actually the key reason, is that I want to offer my gifts from a place of strength, and I can do that in my writing far better than I can in my public speaking, at least at this point in my career. So again, I will be involved as the invisible fourth person that's always involved in the conversation, and I absolutely believe in what you all are doing, and I wish you, Will and Ducky, all the best in the future, and I thank you for your continued friendship. See y'all later. Bye.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks a lot, dude. We're gonna miss you. You know, it's. I mean, we're still gonna be friends and talk, but we as an audience are gonna miss you. So.
Yeah. We as a production.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I still kind of own everybody an introduction about myself. Well, I'm Chinese.
We've covered that.
Okay, you figured that. Probably from my accent, eh? But alright. Yeah, I've been in Canada for almost 13 years now. Have 3 cats right now. Used to have 4 until last week.
Sweetie, they're not dating us.
Oh, okay.
This is not like a gay.com profile or something.
It's just kind of awkward, you know, have to introduce yourself. I know. I like reading and cooking and
Did you just say cocaine?
Cooking.
Anyway.
You like reading and cocaine?
You know, he's a pretty good cook. He does some experimental things, and sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's...
What do you mean by sometimes?
Coconut rum and peanut butter and Montreal steak spice on pork chops.
I still think it's okay.
You would eat
passable.
it.
Well...
So, I don't know how you can take a perfectly good pork chop and make it taste rancid, but now I know.
All right, I take that. But anyway, so I work in the evil industry, insurance industry, I should say.
We should have a dun dun dun. Play.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, I know.
Insurance industry.
I work in the evil insurance industry. Yeah, I always refer myself as the asshole in the big mean insurance company, and that's what I do.
That's what it says on his business cards. Big mean insurance company. Thomas, yeah, or Tommy, and then asshole.
But anyway, no, I mean, that's what I do. That's how I'm a working man. I always refer myself as a working man.
I don't care how you try to sell it. It doesn't work like that, all right? You can't. You're not Joe the plumber. You're not some blue collar.
Okay, everybody, quiet down. You know, just calm down here. What I want to say is that I'm just an honest person going to work every day to earn a paycheck home.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say.
And what?
That's
like,
why I'm a working
I turn
man.
tricks on the side. Is that the?
Okay, you know what? I'm not like Bill Gates. You know, bringing millions of dollars, and I can travel around the world on a daily basis. And I go to work every day like everybody else, so I'm a working man.
And that doesn't entitle you to some sort of special status.
Okay, I used working as an adjective, I guess. Oh well. Anyway,
as
what do I
opposed to
know?
Ducky and I, who don't really work, we just show up and they give us money out of fear, right?
I don't know, but oh well.
It's that white privilege.
Hey, you know what? I am just going back to that those Chinese people come to Canada and build a werewolf for the white people, right? I am a working man. Let's just leave it as is.
Yeah, but when was the last time you had to carry a gallon of glycerin to work?
You know what? Let's carry on our conversation somewhere else.
Working man. Finishing your master's degree, you're an academic. Get over it.
I am not academic anyway. Whatever. I hate to read. I think, like I said before, I always think working man is the perfect description for me. Scholar or academic is more like, those Oxford, professor holding a pipe in their mouth and it's like, yes, I agree with you. And holding a cane, reading books, I'm not one of those, so, I think I love reading. I hate reading, so I'm a working man. Let's just leave it as is, okay?
All right, then.
Methinks she doth protest too much.
Oh boy. This episode is going to be half laughter, I swear. I'm tearing up already. Well, Mr. Insurance Guy, then let's hit our...
I am a working man, let's just leave it as is.
Fine, Mr. Working Man Evil...
Who works for the evil insurance company.
Actually, would you be a working asshole?
Well, I guess my asshole has to work every day, otherwise I'll be in diapers or something.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay, that's not what I meant at all.
No.
Wow.
Well,
I can feel our listenership dropping by the numbers, man.
Well, anyway,
like hundreds of voices have cried out in terror.
All those who have come
Stop the streaming.
I need to make a disclaimer there. I was like, you know what? Let me try to do one episode, just as a guest. But I just need to warn the two of you. I'm not a religious person. I can't go philosophy and... Yeah, no, not me. I like it or I don't. So, too bad if you don't like it, so...
You do realize that both Will and I are not religious people, also.
Oh.
What do you mean, oh? You knew that. You listen to this podcast.
Yes.
You're like one of hundreds, or 100.
Anyway,
you're 1 out of 100 that listen to this podcast.
Hey, that's an accomplishment.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I don't force him to do it, too. He does it out of his own free will, so I appreciate that. I really do.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today, kids?
You wanted to talk about the Carmageddon on the Queen Elizabeth II highway. And that fits with the evil empire guy here that we have next to us.
You know what? I need to say something. Insurance, according to our definition, our industry definition, okay, provide peace of mind. It's a good empire.
It's a good empire.
We are there to help people.
It's like the British Empire forcing civilization on everybody.
A better place for you.
A better place for you.
I hate that.
For the Soviet Union, right? There to help the little guy.
Yes!
Or kill them trying.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I always used to tease them that it's legalized extortion.
Yeah.
You have the privilege to drive, but only if you pay the ransom to the evil asshole.
You know what? Why don't we actually start to talk about the accident?
Well, that's what we were trying to do.
Okay, sorry about that.
But you keep hijacking the conversation.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep my mouth shut now.
Doubt it.
So, as is pretty typical in Alberta, the first day of spring signifies winter arriving.
Or winter just, sticks a finger in your eye just to say, you know what? I'm still here, bitches.
In Calgary specifically, but central to southern Alberta, we get 30 to 40% of our annual snowfall between the first day of spring and the beginning of May. So roughly about 6 to 7 weeks, we receive about 40% of our annual snowfall. This year, it seemed like the province wanted to do 40% of it just on one day.
Now, the first day of spring is March 21st. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So
I think it was on March 20th this week. But
oh, really?
Something like that.
Is that different every year?
I
I don't think so. It's supposed to be the 21st of whatever, right? The spring equinox is on the 21st.
Yeah.
But everybody on the 20th was talking about, hey, welcome to the first day of spring.
Well, that's because it was like plus 10 in Calgary and all the snow was melting, and then the next day it all came back.
Now, does that have anything to do with the little beaver coming out of the hole or something?
I think you mean the groundhog.
Groundhog?
Yeah. No, is that like...
You've been in this country for 13 years and you don't know about Groundhog Day?
Oh, well, I mean, it's silly. I mean, it's not scientific.
Not just a fun movie.
I love Groundhog Day. It's the one day of the year that I will definitely watch CTV. CTV Calgary is a local news station. And the weatherman there, David Spence, you can tell he absolutely detests Groundhog Day. Just the look on his face. Every single year, without fail, it's an insult to his profession of meteorology that he has to cover this nonsense, this pseudoscientific nonsense.
So for those who doesn't understand what's going on, tell them
that he's upstaged by a rodent.
Yeah, so the tradition is, I don't know if the tradition exists outside of North America. I kind of hope not. But if it does, then you'll understand. If not, then you'll realize how actually crazy we are in this country and in the United States is, I believe, a groundhog on the first day of spring, when it comes out of its hole, and if it detects its shadow, that means there's going to be an extra 3 weeks of winter.
Yeah, you got a little... Groundhog Day's back in February, if I recall correctly.
Yes. Okay.
And basically what it means is that if he sees his shadow, it means there's 6 more weeks of winter.
There you go.
And if he doesn't see his shadow, it means it's a early spring.
Right.
It may be the other way around, that the shadow with the 6 weeks. I don't know which exactly it is. I'm sure Wikipedia could tell me if I was, not so lazy. And too busy petting my cat.
And I'm not entirely sure how we determine whether a rodent has recognized his shadow.
Yeah, I mean, like, do we have to see his shadow, or does the rodent have to see the shadow?
I think we have to see him seeing his shadow.
And what if the rodent is like visually impaired?
Well, he's a rodent. He
what
probably
if he's got diabetes and glaucoma?
Well,
or macular degeneration.
In the States, they have this big thing with Puxatawny Phil. Here in Western Canada, it's Balzac Billy. And Balzac Billy is actually a human in a rodent mascot uniform who crawls out of a haystack. So,
just symbolically coming out.
So you can understand why your typical meteorologist would be insulted that this is a form of weather divination.
I went to university for this bullshit.
So Groundhog Day is my favorite day, just to sit there and watch David Spence scowl at the camera for 15 minutes.
So does that have to do with anything, this year? Like, did they have the beaver coming out? Or
it's a groundhog. A beaver is several times the size of your average groundhog.
Like, is that how they actually determine the first day of spring this year?
No, that's done by the first day of spring is done on the spring equinox, I believe.
Yeah.
And that is the longest solar day of the year.
No, it's not. No, it's when the day and the night are the exact same length.
Right. Sorry, and there's two of them. There's the spring equinox and the fall equinox, and that's when...
Right.
Well, you see, I'm a working man. I don't really know these stuff.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Anyway, so let's just talk... I'm sorry.
Working people aren't morons.
And I should know this. I was a practicing pagan for a good part of a decade, so...
I digress. Let's go back to the accident then.
The accident. Yeah, so... A couple people died, so I mean that sucks.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
No, they didn't die.
No, I
didn't hear anybody dying.
This is how it goes. There were 2 major accidents. The one we were actually going to talk about is near Leduc, which is just outside of Edmonton, right? And it involves 100 vehicle, almost 100. I don't know. Like, some reports say 80, some reports say 100. And then
I keep hearing the number 300 thrown around. I don't know if it's... One of them's 100, one of them's 300. I don't know if it's 300 vehicles with 100 injuries or 100 vehicles with 300 injuries.
I think it's like 80 to 100
but
vehicles.
It's still a metric ass ton of vehicles and injuries, so...
And then the death one, the one involving fatality, sorry about that, it happened in West Lock.
There was 100 injuries.
300 vehicles? Okay. Yeah, because the way I heard it started was there was one initial accident that some guy in his truck bumped into some other guy in his truck, and it was right after the crest of a hill. So they pulled over, and they're all like talking to each other about whatever happened, and a semi comes screaming over the top of the hill while Buddy's out in the middle of the road. So the semi guy panics, slams on his brakes, jackknifes, and when a semi jackknifes, the trailer goes sideways because the brakes on the wheels don't work, and the cab ends up going slower than the back of the trailer, and the trailer swings out and blocks the whole highway. And so what ended up happening was the semi ended up hitting the initial accident, and the people who were standing on the road talking about the accident, and that's just chain reaction, and it ended up, because everybody loves to fly up the QE2 on like 160 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
And
sure.
so what ends up happening is, right at the top of the hill, everybody's screaming up the hill, they come over the crest, and boom, there's a truck there. And then boom, there's another truck. And boom, boom, boom. And it just all the way back. Over the top of the hill, down the other side, and yeah, so.
Yeah, now that was the first collision. And the second collision William was talking about happened close to Westlock and involved allegedly on the news. I don't really know what's going on, but some guy collided with a vehicle with a mother and two kids. One kid is 4 years old. Was 4 years old, and another kid was 2 years old. So that's what I heard. But they're not even the same collision, not the same area at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
the first major pileup, the estimates are anywhere between 1 and 200 vehicles, which is quite a huge range. So, but it's probably like in the 130s. And Alberta Health Services had confirmed that about 100 people were injured, and 80 of them were treated at the scene. So 22 were taken to
the
hospitals in the area.
Yeah.
Well, it's reminiscent of the there's a major road that, like, there's a major highway between London and Edinburgh. I think it's called the M3, but I'm not entirely certain. And it's reminiscent of the huge pileup that they had there in England last year. About the same time, and it was the same kind of thing. It was just car. And it was actually quite a bit worse because I guess cars started on fire and people were being burnt to death in their cars.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And yeah, and that there was a huge number of fatalities, and cars were melted into the asphalt because the emergency services couldn't get to them. And that's what it reminded me of when I saw the pictures of the south of Edmonton, was the major accident in one of England's main arteries between their two major cities. Or well, I guess Edinburgh's in Scotland, so it's not really but it goes up the east coast of England. So,
do you think snow tires would have made a difference in this crash?
I would say, you know what, it will definitely make a difference. But if people are still going 160 kilometer, I don't really think it will make too much a difference. Right?
Well, I don't think people are going 160. I mean, 160 does happen on the QE2, but that's pretty rare. In a snowstorm like this, I would imagine the average speed of traffic, knowing the suicidal nature of my fellow Albertans, was probably around 80 or 90.
Yeah, and they were probably following too close as well, which is another big problem. One of the things that they hammer into your head when you're learning how to drive is you need that 3 to 5 second window.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that the car in front of you passes something, you should not pass that same object for 3 to 5 seconds after that car passes it. And that way, the faster you're going, the longer distance you have in between.
And even more so in the snow.
But a lot of people don't do that. Yeah, even more so in the snow.
And also, I heard some news reports saying that the visibility was actually incredibly bad at the time. So, like, you couldn't even see more than 100 meter in front of you. So you definitely have to leave a little bit more room in those type of roads condition. However, like, really, think about it. If you have that many people get into a collision, it's kind of hard to avoid, to avoid anything.
Right.
Sometimes it's unavoidable. But, a lot of people actually ask me, oh, wow, you guys gonna make a lot of money because of the collision. No, people don't understand. We have to pay out now. The insurance company has to pay out, and it's going to be a mess. It's going to be crazy.
There goes your bonus, hey?
Yep, Bye-bye, bonus. Bye-bye.
Unless you can figure out a way to deny people their claims.
But you know what? Honestly, all it takes is one of those 200 cars. Let's say 200 cars. One of them hire a lawyer. They will name every single fucking person in that lane, that chain of event to court.
Right.
And everybody has to respond because they have to.
So
right?
you don't even think it's going to be something you guys are going to have to worry about too much? It's probably something that's going to be thought about in the courts.
Well, we have to worry about it. I mean, there will be damage and whatnot, right?
Right.
I'm more talking about like injury.
Okay.
Because people sue for injuries, right?
Well, that's where you work, right? There's an injury.
I don't want to go to that specific. Yes, okay.
Okay.
But anyway, so people will actually go to court and fight about all the injuries that they have, and it's going to be a nasty, nasty event. So, yeah.
Okay. It'll be a lot of money.
For lawyers, yes.
For lawyers. Oh, God save the lawyers.
You know what? I'm sorry. I really don't have much respect for lawyers, but oh well. That's my little opinion. Who cares, right? So.
Yeah, you're just a working man, right?
Yeah, I'm just a working man. I'm not a lawyer sitting in that office and just make up numbers. I mean, you know what? People don't understand.
Except that you sit in an office and you pick up numbers.
You know what? I could just picture this, like a paralegal sitting at a desk with a D20 and a couple D6s and like, okay, we're going for $620,000 today.
You need to let me tell you stories. Like we have so minor injury and people will be claiming for loss of consortium, which is basically not able to have sex. Like wives are not able to provide spousal duty for the husband or vice versa. They'll claim
spousal duty.
I mean it. Like
That's
one
the
time,
legal term.
Yeah, the wife had a lower back pain, and the lawyers filed a statement of claiming for loss of consortium, and the amount he was claiming for is over 130 grand. Just for loss of consortium.
That's some pretty wild sex.
I know. Like
I wish I had 130 grand worth of
wild
sex.
Lower back pain?
No, okay.
There's a lot of sexual activity that you can participate in that doesn't require your lower back.
Here's a better one. I had another one. Another lady. She had some lower back pain as well. And she was claiming for, like, she couldn't have sex, and she couldn't shave her pubic hair, and she wanted to, like, have $50,000 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and so if we didn't mention it before, this podcast is generally not safe for work. Just
try to save it. Like, put on your headphones or something.
Yeah, put on your headphones if you're listening during work.
Oh, well.
50,000. So she had lower back pain and couldn't shave her pubes and got $50,000.
So I was just saying, you know what?
Well, she sued for $50,000.
Fair enough.
You know what? Why don't we just offer her like a couple of $1,000? Go have some bikini racks or something. You know, have somebody do it for you, right? So
yeah, really hire an aesthetician.
Esthetician.
The girls who go to school so that they can be classically trained on how to groom people's genitals.
Anyway.
You gotta be careful what you're saying, dude, or you're gonna get us sued.
And that's why I'm not using my real name.
Okay, yeah, because, you know, the husband of somebody who's incredibly easily identified. We're gonna edit that little part out of there. We don't need to be libeling an entire...
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right.
You're doing great for your first time here, buddy.
You're pseudo-anonymous. You're not completely anonymous, okay, dude?
I'm just a working man.
Yeah.
That's my defense. Oh, I'm just a working man. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm Chinese.
I'm Chinese.
I don't like how you're disparaging working people, dude.
I like how he's like, I'm Chinese, like that's some sort of defense.
Yeah.
You're not ignorant because you're Chinese. You're an academic.
I'm not an academic. I'm a working man. One more time. But you know what, though? I have to actually say, just kind of get me thinking. You know,
Yeah,
I
maybe from an Asian perspective, he is a working man.
yeah, like wait, where I came from, I am really a working man. I don't make a lot of money, and like I don't have a fancy car like those some other people. I don't drive a Mercedes or like a BMW walking around, you know, blowing money. I mean, I don't know. Let's just cut this part out, okay? Yeah, I never actually thought about what I was gonna say, but okay.
No, that's okay. That's evident, and it'll be on the internet forever and ever and ever and ever.
Anyway.
So yeah, get snow tires, and we have some words from the CFI. All right, the Center for Inquiry.
Well, it's not from the CFI, but it's about the CFI.
The CFI is sponsoring it. So anyway, well, you've heard the ad, and you know what? I hope you guys like the ad because you are going to hear it every single week until the end of April. So book your tickets.
Hey HQ fans, ever wondered where the heck is Calgary? So is George Hrab, musician, writer and producer of the renowned skeptical podcast, The Geologic Podcast. Having been featured at DragonCon, TAM, and even in front of a US president, George wanted to know more about our great city, so the Calgary Centre for Inquiry is sponsoring his visit. So if you, like him, will be in Calgary on April 31st, go to cfiyyychrab.eventbrite, spelled BRITE.ca, and book your tickets. Ducky promises that if you use the promo code HQFan, all lowercase with no spaces, you'll save $2 off admission, and I'll be spared one day of whipping for every ticket sold. So please come to Calgary and see George for the love of science and voiceover boys everywhere.
Alright, so, what else are we gonna talk about today?
Do you want to host this? What is it with the guests who keep coming on the show trying to take my job? First it was Daria, now it's him. My God. Anyway, there was a tech conference, and somebody lost their job because they wanted to fork a dongle, from what I understand. Do you want to explain that to everybody else?
Two people lost a job, but there was a I heard about this from A Voice for Men is where I heard about it initially. And then I went and looked at the other side of the story from Jezebel, which is the radical feminist, sort of the group of radical feminists who don't actually want to murder all the men on the planet. That's Rad Fem Hub. But Jezebel is like the sort of legitimate political wing of the radical feminist movement.
Is that
talking about?
They're a Gawker property, right?
I don't know.
Anyway.
Sorry, is that called Chastity Bell?
Jezebel.
Jezebel.
Oh, that's the name of the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, Jezebel.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Totally misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Chastity belts. That's a good name
for no sex here. Ding, 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 ding. No, basically what happened was, it was a tech conference, and there was, 300-400 tech reporters and technicians and, things like that, in this auditorium listening to this guy give a lecture, and the guy was talking about dongles. Now, a dongle, for those of you who aren't technically literate, is a little device. It looks like a USB key on one end and an antenna on the other end. And what you do is you plug it into laptops and cell phones and things like that, and it works as a wireless connector. So that you can, easily connect your laptop or whatever to a wireless network without having to rely on an internal modem. Anyway, so they were talking about dongles and forking dongles, and one of the guys in the audience was joking with his friend about forking a dongle, and this woman who was in the row in front of him got very upset, very, very upset, and she turned around and she snapped a picture and smiled at the guy and then tweeted it specifically to the organization committee who was running the conference, which, if I remember correctly, is called the Ada Institute?
Sounds right, yeah.
Ada Institute, I think? Yeah. I don't have the page open in front of me, so I'm going off the top of my head. Anyway, so the ADA Institute has very strict
Sorry, the
guidelines.
ADA initiative.
Okay, ADA initiative. Has very strict guidelines about what is appropriate and not appropriate conversation matter. And, particularly, they have, a ban or very strong discouragement against having discussions regarding in a sexual nature or regarding sex and sexual situations, unless it's in a women positive manner, which I found is kind of funny
and explicitly relevant to the topic at hand.
Yes, and explicitly relevant to the topic at hand. So, if anybody knows about techiness, forking dongles is a completely legitimate technical term.
Yeah, forking in the tech industry is basically making a derivative of. So if you have a software product or a hardware product that exists in state A, and you want to make an iteration that does something a little different, you might fork it to state B and then another fork. It's like a tine, right? So you have, it splits. It's kind of what forking means.
Yeah. Anyway, so the guys were talking about forking dongles, and the girl, her name is Adria Richards, basically accused them over Twitter of, making inappropriate sexual jokes. So the ADA initiative got a hold of this, found out who the guys were, and had them both fired from their jobs. So that's good times. And this started a whole uproar about, the idea that we need to be policing people's, conversations and nonsense like that. And the woman who posted the picture has since also been fired from her job for her inappropriate behavior of being malicious in her persecution or whatever. And so it's being referred to, at least in the men's rights community, as Donglegate. And my opinion is just like it is an exercise in overreaction. Adria Richards needs to grow some skin. Companies need to stop firing people over stupid nonsense like this. It's just, I don't know. It was just a bunch of silliness that ended up losing, 2 people their jobs.
Well, I think there's a couple of issues here. One is that being the technology industry is incredibly male-dominated and a little immature.
Were they making a joke, though? As you said, it was a technical term, right?
Well, yeah. It's a double entendre, right? So it's something that can be seen both legitimately and sexually, from the way I've read the reporting on it. But the overarching thing, we can look at this as a specific incident, but it's really, there's a couple of things. So the initiative is trying to address getting more women into technology. The technology industry, I think, is something like 96-97% men. Which is why we have video games with women who are absurdly dressed.
Well, those same video games also have hyper-masculine men in it too, but, nobody ever argues about that.
And that's true as well. And, we have things, if you look at PC architecture and whatnot, for some of the things like D-cups and whatnot, they're often named based on female anatomy and whatnot. Keep in mind, a lot of the computer technology industry has been derived out of the efforts of college men.
So basically, like a Big Bang Theory, Howard, basically.
Yeah, a large part of the industry could definitely be Howard-ish from the Big Bang Theory, for sure. So, in that sense, I think I can kind of agree of, let's not be hyper-sexualized in everything that we do in the tech industry. I don't see it a lot in Calgary, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. And I'm all for bringing absolutely more women into the industry. I think that it could bring a lot of perspective and creativity that we lack, right? So diversity is always a good thing as far as I'm concerned, or generally a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I think where we overstep the bounds is when we're talking about hyper-political correctness, eliminating people's employment because they made a joke. Especially a double entendre, not even explicitly sexist or racist joke, which might have a little more political weight to it. So, to me, it sounds like an appropriate course of action, at the very most, would be formal discipline. If not just saying, hey guys, you know what, we have a policy, people are feeling disrespected. Don't do this kind of crap, right? Deal with people as adults, don't fire them. I realize in the States, and even here, we're having employment issues, and it's really easy to toss people out on the street, but it doesn't look good for the company. It doesn't look good for equality movements. It doesn't look good for feminist movements. It really, nothing positive has come out of this action, and I think that's really what it boils down to.
Now, I've never read this article, okay? I have to be honest, but when you're talking about equality, obviously, like I said before, I don't know. Just in case everybody don't know that, I'm Chinese. Okay,
not Laotian. Yes, we've covered this.
But anyway, I always find that yeah, there are people. They have different what do you call that? Like they have different opinion about your race.
Okay.
If you're not the majority, and you can
even
actually,
if you are the majority.
Yeah, in that matter, right? So I think you can choose to just move on with it and just, be a bigger person and just move on with it. Or you can actually drill on it, right? Like myself, I choose not to actually think that, people are treating me in a certain way because I'm Chinese or because I'm not the majority. I always think, you know what? I want
you need to come to Edgemont, buddy.
Oh, really? That bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're totally the majority here, man.
All right. But anyway,
I get on the bus and I don't see another white face. They're all Asian.
Yeah. No, you know what?
You mean the socialist bus?
You know
Shut
what?
up.
Actually, not long ago, somebody called me a fucking communist at work. And I was like, really? I'm a liberal. Why are you telling me I'm a communist? Just because I'm Chinese?
Liberals are almost commies in this country.
Yeah, I guess. But
you work for an insurance company and you're being called a communist. That just made my mind blow up when I heard that.
Yeah. But anyway, you can choose to ignore certain prejudice against, your group, if you will, if you are considered to be a minority. Or you can actually just drill on it, and then every single thing you see will be...
Do you mean the word dwell?
Dwell. Dwell.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Anyway,
okay,
my Chinese accent, okay? God.
We call it Chinglish.
Chinglish. But anyway, so if you actually see everything as an attack, obviously you will see people are just being prejudiced against you, right? So... yeah, that's my view.
Yeah, I guess. I think I don't like that because you know what? I don't think that you need to overreact, and I don't think that you need to stay silent. I think that
I'm not asking you to stay silent, but you can actually handle a situation from a different angle.
Yeah, I think if she would have turned around and said, "Guys, not cool," that would have been the end of it.
Yeah,
really, they would have gotten the message, and 4 people would still be employed.
And I think...
well, see, that's kind of one of the things that one of the psychologists on the site has pointed out. She says, Mr. Hank, the man who was fired by Playhaven, said that she, referring to Adria Richardson, smiled when she snapped the pic and sealed my fate. The doctor goes on to say, I'd be willing to wager that this wasn't a genuine smile, but the smirk, TM. The sociopath smirk. The smirk that means, you don't know it, but I'm about to stick the knife in and twist hard. The smirk that says, I'm feeling very pleased with myself about the damage I'm about to inflict upon you. The smirk that says, you're such an idiot, I'm about to jam my dongle up your backside and you think I'm being friendly. Right?
Right.
These are not the acts of somebody who is offended, insulted, or upset. This is malicious you know. So, yeah.
What concerns me is that the employer didn't have the ability to moderate their response, whether through policy or through, you know, common sense and respect.
Yeah, I think the bigger problem though is these, because we're seeing it at atheist conferences now after that fucking what's her face decided to get all upset about elevator gate, right? Where now
I have no
idea
idea what you're talking about, and I'm sure 90% of the people don't either.
Rebecca Watson was approached in an elevator at an atheist conference by a man who asked her if she would like to join her for coffee. And she politely declined and left the elevator, and then she went on to rant about how he was attempting to rape her and made her feel uncomfortable with his overtures and blah, 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 blah. And now it's devolved into this sort of huge sort of schism in the middle of the rationalist movement, where you have all the feminists on one side and all the rational people on the other side who are saying, look, it was just a cup of coffee. You're upset because of your problems, of your biases, of your internal, cognitive dissonance. And, Rebecca Watson, on the other hand, is sort of leading this feminist charge that they need to ban all sexual talk at any kind of, atheist conference because it creates an unsafe work environment for the women. And I'm like, it really bothers me because women are grown-ups. They're adults. They're capable of making their own decisions. They're capable of, being exposed to this kind of stuff and should be able to deal with it like grown-ups, like mature adults. And yet, when you have the ADA initiative explicitly supporting discussion of sex when it's done in a woman-positive way, that's the kind of inherent bigotry that really bothers me about feminism, and that's why these kinds of, what's the word I'm looking for? These kind of guidelines that are being set up to make women feel safe and comfortable at these conferences in order to encourage their, encourage their participation it's just patently absurd, right? Like, not only are we, like, the sort of idea that this is coming to is how to put it, the basic premise that seems to be running through all of these guidelines and these sort of sensitivity training and this sort of how do we keep women feeling comfortable is like, not only are you children who can't handle adult conversations, but you also need consistent condescending encouragement to be able to hand a job in the technology industry. And women who are capable of handling themselves in the tech industry without all this hand-holding and condescension are really being done a disservice by all these other feminists who are saying women are too weak and too soft and too, like crybaby-y to handle a forking dongle joke.
I think there's a valid point, though, to say that we don't have to tolerate hypersexualized workplaces.
And remember, like, actually, between you and me, like William and Tommy, we actually talked about it last night. It depends on the company's corporate culture as well, right? Depends on the audience. Remember the incident you were talking about Starbucks? Can you actually kind of...
Yeah, so, well, tangentially related, I suppose, kind of political correctness gone amok, but it's not even that. I was actually quite impressed by this. At the shareholders meeting for Starbucks, a shareholder had brought a concern about an ongoing boycott by the conservative Christian right in the United States, or at least a small group of them, and how it was affecting profits for Starbucks. And they launched this particular boycott because Starbucks had come out in support of gay marriage. And Starbucks is a very politically active organization, and, they engage in a lot of social causes and whatnot. Yeah, and what the CEO said was, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Our profits are up 38%, but if that's not enough for you, you feel free to sell your shares and leave, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to back down on our position just because.
That's the news story that I saw. Was basically the CEO said, "Hey, if you don't support marriage equality, you're welcome to sell your shares."
Yeah. So I think it probably just kind of the same kind of way, like they just responded according to their culture, right? Would that be?
Well, I think that what they're trying to do is establish a culture. So Starbucks has a very entrenched culture. We all know it. We all intuit it. I mean, for Starbucks to come out against gay marriage would probably decimate their business, given a large part of their employees are gay. And they're I mean, I'm not saying that they all are, obviously, but many are. My point outside of Starbucks is with the technology industry, they're trying to affect a cultural change, because in science and tech we realize, and this is something that we even deal with at Mount Royal University, is in trying to recruit people into our faculty, is we're really heavy in male enrollment. 70% of our university is students are female, but we have, I think it's, and my numbers are going to be a little soft here, but I think it's in the 80 to 90% in the sciences are male. So, there's a big disconnect there. Most females either go into nursing, social work, or the arts, right? Well, I mean, I guess nursing and social work technically is under the Faculty of Arts. Not so many go into the Faculty of Science and Technology. So there's definitely a need to make science and tech more accessible and more palatable to females. And I think
I don't really think so. Science and tech is what it is, and, putting a pink ribbon on it so girls will like it more seems ridiculous.
I don't think it's about putting a pink ribbon on it. I think it's about saying that, you know what, you can come work in the industry without having to be sexualized or objectified. And
yeah, but how many women choose not to work in science and tech because they're afraid they'll be sexualized?
And I guess that's
right?
kind of the situation they want to create.
So it's a matter of degrees. So I think in terms of changing the culture, this is a conversation we need to have with the industry and saying that, you know what, we need to tone it down a little bit. But by the same token, this is not the only reason why women don't enter the industry. Right? Some of it is a lack of visible leaders and visible heroes. I mean, the first programmer in the world was a female, but whatever.
I don't know, it seems silly to me that I don't understand why the focus seems to be on getting more women into programming when it should be getting more good programmers.
I think it comes down to a diversity of opinion and approach, right? So it can be, and maybe it's relying too much on gender stereotypes and cultural stereotypes, so maybe men are too linear and whatnot, and maybe that is just an overall societal thing and isn't true, but having a female perspective on things does make a difference in terms of how you run a business, how you design products, how you educate, or what your pedagogical approaches are, and those type of things. So I think that a female voice is very much lacking in the industry, and I think it is desired. But I think that it's overkill to start firing people because they make
a dongle joke.
Because the implication is, when you see things like the ADA initiative and whatnot, that one, women need protection, and two, men don't. So, I mean...
Or that men are inherently the threat or the aggressors from which women need protection.
Right, like, just because a man approaches you doesn't mean he wants to rape you. And it sounds absurd to me, and I'm sure it sounds absurd to most of our listeners, but there is a contingent of people out there who feel that way. That being said, forbidding any type of... Like, we're sexual animals, we're social animals. There's no way to get around it. We can separate it, we can tone it down, but to say that we have to eliminate it entirely... I don't know how effective or even desired that is, to be honest with you.
But may I ask a question, though? I mean, this type of situation, occur, if you will, is more basically, event like this, encourage women to speak up, right?
Right.
And they so basically let people know it is not okay, it is not tolerated, right? And then so more female will be able to actually feel more comfortable to come out and talk about it and actually report incidents and whatnot.
Sure, but what I'm getting at is I'm not saying that what they're talking about is entirely undesirable. I think the way that they're approaching it is. I think it's a pendulum shift too far to the other side. Right? I think that we need to have more of a balance as opposed to sex will not be talked unless it celebrates women. Because you can't tell me in the tech industry or any other industry that women don't make fun of men sexually and they don't objectify them. I know they do. I've heard it, right? And I'm not hurt by it. But you can't say that, men are the only source of objectification and sexualization in any industry or in any part of society. It happens on both sides. There was a particular individual at school who I heard make a comment to somebody else that what men fear the most is being laughed at by women, and what women fear the most is being raped or murdered by men, which is patently absurd.
Actually, I want to make one comment. Working in an office sometimes, I actually do feel that men can be... Okay, let me actually give an example. Sometimes, being the only few men in the office, if they have stuff they need to move around, they'll call us. We have to do that. Why am
They're
I...
strong and independent until they need a box moved. And then that becomes boys' work.
Yeah, and can you actually put something on the ceiling or this and that?
And part of it might be a measure of ability and dress. But, so I think you have to judge. Is she asking you because she genuinely needs the help? Or is she asking you because you have a penis and therefore you're the box mover?
Yeah.
And it's hard to separate that in that situation. But I understand where you're coming from, right?
Yeah.
And these are conversations as men we're generally not allowed to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets us vilified.
Or if you...
Well, did you guys... I linked something in my Facebook about a week ago about a guy who works in childcare in the UK. And he was demonstrating the consistent bigotry that and sexism that he endures because he's male in a female-dominated industry. Specifically things like he's often called Jane. His name is John something, but the other both his boss and his coworkers often jokingly referred to him as Jane for his first couple of weeks. In his entrance interview, the woman who was interviewing him actually asked him, "Are you comfortable being one of the girls?" And these are the kind that he was not allowed to change diapers of children unless he was accompanied by a woman, right? And these are the kinds of things that if the roles were reversed, there would be huge amounts of outroar. There would be, protests and riots and politicians lining up to talk about how women should not be, denigrated in such ways. And yet...
Well, that may be a little hyperbolic, but I get your point.
But the point is that if you can reverse the roles and it's suddenly okay, or not okay, that is the test for bigotry.
Right.
And there is so many things that women can do to men, or that our society condones when men are the victims of it, or the targets of it. But if women were the targets of that same sort of behavior or attitude, it would be abhorrent.
Yeah.
Think about that. I think... Sorry, Tommy. I think I would agree with you on that, and I don't think the three of us share a dissenting viewpoint on that. So what I'm going to say to our viewers is, please, if you have an alternative view on that, I don't know, viewers, listeners, whatever, you know who you are, hit our Facebook group or hit the webpage and let us know. If you got a different opinion, you got a different take, share it with us, please. Go ahead, Tommy.
I was just gonna say, okay, on the street, if you see a woman snapping at the guy's face, you would think the guy did something wrong. right?
Yeah.
And you just move on and go on, carry on with your life. But if a woman gets snapped by a man, you think it's domestic abuse.
Yeah. ABC has a show called, I think it's called What Would You Do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they did an episode on that very thing where they staged a fight between a man kind of berating a woman in a park and filmed how people reacted to it. And almost without fail, people came to the defense of the woman and came down really hard on the guy. And when
but they got involved,
and when they reversed this,
man, woman alike, they got involved and started,
and we'll post that video in the show notes as well.
If we can find it, no promises.
No, I know where to find it.
Oh, okay.
And conversely, when it was women berating or assaulting a man, people just continued walking by. Some even cheered her on.
Yeah.
And now think about it, though.
They actually talked to some of the people who just walked right past it afterwards and said, why did you think that was acceptable? If it was a man beating a woman in a public place, how would you react? And why is it okay for a woman to beat a man? What was your first thought? And nearly to a person, the reaction was, well, he did something to deserve it.
Right.
I have to be honest. If I see the same situation, I'll probably will go jump and help the woman if the woman gets snapped. But on the other hand, if the role reversed, I don't know if I will actually go help the man. I'm sorry. I don't know if I would do it myself.
Why is
today?
that? Why is that?
I don't know. And, it's actually...
Arguably, it's... The descriptions that I've heard about it is that it all comes down to evolutionary psychology. Is the idea that we as a society have always sort of, we don't, men in particular, women have what's called a self-selecting bias or self-identifying bias, in which case that women will often agree with each other based on the fact that they're women, that we girls got to stick together. Men don't have that. Men very rarely will align their goals with other men because the other person is a man. It's usually, around the same baseball team or the same political party or something along those lines. But it's not, a gender thing, right? And the reason for that, as I've heard described it, is that we've had to be able to first of all, men had to have been able to sort of disconnect their empathy and their sense of humanity for other men, because they're always competition, whether direct competition as in like warfare or battles over women, to passive competition in sort of who's going to get the better job, whereas women have never sort of had to compete with one another in that sense. And so we've kind of developed this inherent need to protect women, to keep them safe, because there's no benefit to, societally, no benefit to having, being willing to sacrifice women. Whereas in the modern day, where we have come to the point now where technology has allowed us to get past the need to be willing to sacrifice our men, we haven't been able to shed that sort of psychological bias towards the protection of women and the disposability of men.
You know what, Dougie? I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, let me ask you something. I think it's more to do with our social norm and upbringing, if you will. Let me ask you a question. Actually, I was just thinking about it, the same kind of scenario, but in a different way. I was taking the bus from Chinatown home the other day. Now, I don't know if you ever took a bus from Calgary, Chinatown to, anywhere. Mm-hmm. There's a Chinese mall in Chinatown, and there'll be a lot of older Chinese couple or Chinese people trying to get on the bus, and they are loud. And again, they're really loud. But okay, that's one side people see. And like you see some people getting the dirty look and whatnot. However, little that people know, they actually just say, "Oh, Mrs. Chan, come sit here, don't stand, just come sit here." They're actually really polite to each other. But you know what? They're older people, they can't hear well, right? So they speak loud. That's what happened. Now, same situation. The other day, I was actually taking the bus again. Two French people talking to each other in French. Very loud. Totally different reaction with the people around them.
In what sense?
Like, they don't have that dirty look in their mind. They just carry on with their life and whatnot. But, like, if you see a whole bunch of Chinese people or Indian people, they talk loud, you see people around them kind of give them the dirty look. But
I have some insight into that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't speak any Mandarin. I don't speak any Cantonese. I know Joikin and Ni Hao.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Right? And Wei.
Le Homa.
But...
That's Cantonese, by the way.
But, I do speak a little bit of Urdu. But, from my perspective, one of the reasons why I cringe when I hear Indian or, Asian people speaking really loudly is that the inflections of their language is very sharp. And it's painful to hear at high volume.
You know what?
That is kind of... I don't get that same sort of, ear-splitting pain from French or German or Italian or Mexican or, but I do get it from the Eastern languages.
So is it like a physical discomfort?
It's a physical discomfort that I find when you have people shouting at each other in Chinese or in Pakistan, Punjabi.
Okay, you know what?
But that's because you're not used to it, though.
Okay, Dougie,
Yeah.
you know what? Okay, I give you that. But at the same time, to a degree, do you think it has something to do with our social norm? And
if anything, it's probably the fact that you don't understand the language.
But-
I think that when you have somebody, if you hear two people shouting at each other in English, at the very least you know what they're saying, right?
But you know what? Like, okay, same scenario with a man and a woman. You walk in and you don't know what they're talking about. Like, let's say you see them from a distance, right? You're guessing what's going on. So you actually will go back to what happened in your life before and try to find the right information and try to kind of put the picture together in your mind, right? You make assumption. Same thing with the Chinese and the French. That's kind of the example I'm trying to make, right?
Right, but okay, good, because I was wondering where you were going with all that. But I think
basically what I'm trying to say is when we actually go into a situation, we don't know what's going on. We will go back and find our social norm, our upbringing, all these things, and try to actually kind of make an assumption about the scenario, right? And I think, in our mind, it's probably really, really clear that, okay, man is aggressor. Man is the vulnerable party, right? So when we see a man and a woman arguing, we always try to help the woman, not the man.
But that's an incorrect narrative.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Why is man always the aggressor?
That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm asking you, though. So if this... I understand what you're saying, that we react this way because this is what we believe. It comes from our social narrative. It comes from what we've been taught, maybe even what we've seen. But why is it then that we believe that? Why don't we ever stop to question ourselves and say, hey, she's yelling at him, she's striking him? If we wouldn't accept that from the opposite scenario, why do we accept it this way?
You know what? I'm not disagreeing with that. Like, I actually totally agree with what we have been talking about. But what I just want to actually explain is this is probably why we make such an assumption.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any dispute there. I think what we're trying to do, though, is raise awareness so that people don't just immediately jump to those unfounded assumptions and that they actually critically think about the situation that they're either willing to ignore or willing to, put themselves into.
Yeah.
We need to react to the situation,
Right.
not to the gender.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think going back to this whole tech conference thing, I think is really what kind of irked me about it was the fact that, if the situation was reversed, I'm not entirely sure that the outcome would have been the same. I mean, if the genders were reversed, I don't think the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah, if it was two women talking about forking dongles, and it was a man who was upset, the reaction would be, quit being such a crybaby, suck it the fuck up.
Yeah, explicitly right? Under the conventions of, of discourse that this conference had laid out, which was woman-positive discourse, right? So, in that sense, there's a bias. And when my feminist friends and I guess not so quite friends hear me, they think that I'm automatically a men's rights activist or an anti-feminist, or no, I really care not for the labels, or because that makes it too easy to peg me into the actions and thoughts of others. My whole thing is whether I'm a moderate in many things, and that it's not that I don't have values, it's that I don't have beliefs. It's I try to approach it of what is the viewpoint from the other side, and are we making our choices and our arguments objectively, or are we just reacting them based on social narratives? Are we reacting emotionally? Do we own the values that we espouse, or do we just or espouse rather, or do we just hold them because they're convenient and we don't have to challenge them? Right? When I lost my theism, I found it. And that's kind of where I've been coming from the last couple of years, is I have to challenge what values are mine, which narratives are mine, and which ones are society's, and find out what I agree with and what I don't agree with. And I'm finding more and more that I really don't know. I've gotten to debate at the Pride Center in school about a bill that was recently passed to the Canadian Human Rights legislation, specifically protecting transgendered rights. Mm-hmm. And while I think transgendered people ought to have the same protections of everyone else, I also believe that everyone else ought to have the same protections as transgendered people. So, and that was kind of the distinction that I've been trying to make, right? So, and that I think bothers a lot of people when you present an argument that allows for nuances. I know it tends to irk Ducky a little bit, but yeah. I think that in order to have a competent conversation, you need to be able to explore the ideas of both sides and at least understand, if not agree, where the other side is coming from.
Yay!
All right, let's sell some magazines.
Hey there, HQ fan. Do you read Maclean's, Money Sense, Chatelaine maybe? Because if you do, you can go to the Hardly Qualified main page and click the Rogers button there to help support Hardly Qualified. You're going to read it anyway, right? So you might as well help out Hardly Qualified in the process, since we get a cut of any subscriptions earned through our site. And if you don't read any of the Rogers Media magazines, perhaps now is the best time to start. So remember, if you love the voiceover boy and you don't want him to get any more beatings, you'll read some magazines from the Hardly Qualified page. You don't hate voiceover boys, do you?
You know what, actually, I was checking out the Rogers magazine service thing, and the prices are pretty good. You can get like 81% off the magazine stand price, but the subscription prices are also a little cheaper than what you'd get from just filling out those little flower cards. And if you're an Air Mouse collector or an Aeroplan collector, you can also sign up for those as well. And we still get credit for assisting with that sale. So if you're a subscriber to any of those magazines in Canada or the United States, please click on our link, subscribe through us, help us out a little bit, and buy a magazine.
Yay.
Yeah.
Or two.
Or three. But don't buy more than three. Well, don't buy more than five. If you buy more than five, you're just wasting money. Well, no, seriously, who has time to read more than 5 magazines? Some of these magazines are weekly.
You know, some people just buy the magazine so that they can show people that they're actually really reading it.
I know. I have a magazine addiction. Tommy can attest to this. At one point I had...
It's like when you have company coming over and you spread out, National Geographic. You put the Cat Fancy in the drawer and you put the National Geographic on the table.
Okay, so I'll be a little honest here, just as a thought experiment. Magazines I subscribe to. Actually, magazines Tommy subscribes to is his alumni magazine and his industry magazine. Right?
Okay.
Just those two. Although the alumni magazine, I think, goes directly into the recycle bin, doesn't even come out of the...
They just talk about, like, stuff that I already know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and ask you for more money. So, okay, the magazines I subscribe to are 2600, which is a hackering magazine, Maclean's, Canadian Business, Money Sense, Skeptic, Touchstone, Poets and Authors, The Writer, Consumer Reports, Scientific American, Outdoor Photography Professional, Photo Pro, Popular Photography, and I think there's one more.
Okay, so how many are there? 20? 15?
Close to 20 magazines.
How many of those you actually read in the last 6 months? I proved my point. Thank you.
Doesn't matter how many you read as long as you buy them.
Exactly. You know what, though? What I tend to do is I'll like, okay, you know what? This month's going to be a Skeptic magazine month, and I'll go through and I'll read 6 months worth of Skeptic magazine.
I'm not saying, don't buy magazine. That's totally not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that, you know what? Buy what you think you are able to read, right?
I did buy what I thought I was able to read. That's the problem.
Never mind.
Buy what you're actually going to read.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry, this is kind of an ad that went on to a weird tangent, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, and you know what's worse is I actually started canceling subscriptions because I'd subscribed to like Popular Mechanics and a whole bunch of other ones too. And
some of those are big reads, right? I mean, there's a big difference between like, reading Maxim and reading National Geographic or Popular Mechanics.
Well, when I signed up for Scientific American, I didn't realize it was a weekly. I read it once, and I'm like, this is pretty good. I can deal with this like once a month because it's a pretty, dense,
200
overview of what's going on the.
No pictures, no ads.
Well, no, it's not a journal. I mean, it's very much like popular science, but a step up. It's somewhere between like an actual journal and popular science, right? Scientific American. So it's not a light read by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not full papers or whatnot. But it is actually a weekly magazine, and I got quickly overwhelmed by it. So, yeah.
I just remember when I was a kid, when I was back home, I bought Newsweek and Times Magazine.
Yeah.
And I just learned my English that way. Because my mom always asked me to memorize the whole dictionary, which she never did. But she said some of her successful classmates memorized the whole dictionary, right? And so I have to actually start to do that. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna memorize the dictionary, but you know what? If you want me to amuse you, I'll get some Times Magazine and Newsweekly,
Well, I think that's a better approach. I mean, just because you've memorized the dictionary doesn't mean you understand the language.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or
the vocabulary doesn't matter if you don't know the syntax or the grammar.
Yeah. Or the nuances.
Speaking of grammar, oh my god, please start using plurals.
What?
Me. I don't use plural. I don't have S's or... I don't know. Yeah, no, I know. You know what?
I'm so used to it now.
I know.
It's just, it makes me twitch every time.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what? I took...
My mom, classmate, and I'm like, she only had one? And I know it's because, Chinese languages don't have plurals, so it's a psychological disconnect.
Well, see, here's the thing. Like, we don't have any plurals, and we don't have any past tense.
Right.
And, like, seriously, this many years, I still can't wrap my head around it, right? I can have a brief conversation, and that's why I say, I always refer myself as a working man.
Oh, God.
No, I
give it up already.
I'm an Asian app. I'm sorry.
You know what? When you say I'm just a working man, that implies that there are other people around you that aren't and are somehow more privileged or better off. Like, we just receive cash deposits in our mailbox, and you have to go
like
out
I said, it's that white privilege.
Yeah, exactly. We're oppressing you by making you go work. Working man. Anyway, I'm sorry, you're never going to convince me of that one. So, yeah, Asian F. Well, I took that introduction to Chinese course, and I found that incredibly helpful. Not because I past it or anything. But
let's just leave it as is.
I found it incredibly helpful in just terms of learning grammar structure and
providing insight.
Yeah, and it really helped me in terms of learning how Thomas constructs his thoughts and his speech and whatnot. So,
Tommy the working man.
Tommy the working man constructs his speech and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to construct something, right? He's a working man.
Yeah.
Well, you see, okay.
Sits in his glass tower.
Let me tell you something.
Downtown.
When I was in high school, senior high.
Pounding staplers.
Okay, shh. Listen to me here. My parents went to see my teacher, and my teacher told my parents, "You know what? Don't waste your time on Tommy. He's not gonna go anywhere. He's not gonna be able to finish university. Just send him to work, so he can actually get something he can actually make out of his life."
To the mines.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I mean.
Well, we need somebody to pump our gas, right?
Hey, or I'll clean your floor, right?
Darn.
Pick up your dog poop and stuff. So
what happened then?
What happened?
Yeah.
I don't know.
How come you're not working in the mines?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
How did you end up with this nice white-collared job, Mr. Working Man?
Okay, it's not a white-collar job.
It's a white-collar job.
Okay, fine. It's an office job.
Do you know why it's called a white-collar job? Like the distinction between white-collar and blue-collar?
Yeah.
Not really.
Is that if it's a white-collar job if you predominantly wear suits.
Right.
That's where the white-collar comes from, because you don't get dirty.
But where does the blue come from?
Denim.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, so the idea that if you're wearing jumpsuits, coveralls, those kind of things, like
we learned
that's where the blue
something
collar.
today.
Yeah.
Yay!
That's where the blue collar comes from.
But you know
and
what?
that's where the delineation is if it's sort of a academic, soft sort of job where you use your mind and that kind of thing. It's a white collar job. Lawyers, bankers,
insurance assholes.
Insurance assholes, teachers, things like that. And the blue collar job is where you get dirty. That's like construction workers, coal miners, tow truck drivers, garbage truck men,
working men.
Working men.
Dude,
that kind of thing.
Dude, you have no idea how dirty we have to be sometimes.
I'm not talking about ethics, dude. We're talking about
We're same
talking
thing.
About actual dirt,
grime in your hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean,
and spilling the mustard out of your pastrami sandwich on your tie doesn't qualify as getting dirty at work.
So here's how you can tell whether or not you're a working man or a blue collar versus a white collar. Blue collar comes home and they have to wash their hands to get the dirt off of them with soap and water. White collar man comes home and he has to wash his soul with alcohol out of him.
Well, here's a question. You're blue collar if you shower after work, and you're white collar if you shower before work.
Ah, there you go. What if you don't shower at all? Then you're
self-employed.
That's right. Then you're a gamer.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well.
I apologize to all the gamers out there. That is a unfair stereotype, and I apologize for reinforcing it.
So what if you're a professional gamer? Are you blue collar or white collar? I guess you're white collar.
I'd say white collar, yeah.
What about like a professional poker player?
White collar.
Yeah, that'd be white collar too, I think.
But
I mean,
what about
when the
actors?
terms were designed, they were designed like they came about in like the 40s and 50s when you had, a clear delineation between the lower class blue collar and the upper class white collar.
Now it's pretty blended. I mean, there's some days where I can get pretty dirty doing IMAX or cable installations, and there's other days where, I just
You're
sit in
sitting
my
behind a
office
computer
and I'm doing everything
filling out
remotely,
invoices.
right?
Yeah.
You know what? You go up to Fort Mac, which is the area with all the oil sand and whatnot.
Fort McMurray,
Yeah.
International audience.
Okay. Yeah, those guys actually wear, like, they do a lot of physical work, but guess how much money they make?
How much?
Okay, as a battery operator, which is kind of an entry-level job, they make at least $80,000 to start.
Right. Yep.
I wrote a policy. The guy just pick up horse poop.
Right.
They make $200,000 a year.
To pick up horse poop?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm in the wrong industry.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Snow removal? Crazy, 120.
No.
No, okay.
If you're an operator, maybe
listen,
not if you're the actual.
You actually have to have your little a machine, like what do you call those? Bulldozer or
Bobcat.
Bobcat. Thank you.
Okay.
And actually, because they're like
Bulldozer.
really undeveloped role, you have to actually clean it out.
Oh, okay. You're not talking about like the guy that does our neighbor's street.
No. Like
Yeah.
a massive amount of snow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
$120,000 a year.
Yeah, but that's also because you're in the middle of some, logging road in northern Alberta by yourself in the
Demand
middle
and
of winter.
supply, right? Come on.
And risk of death.
Demand and supply again.
Well, yeah, not too many people want to plow roads in the middle of nowhere for
There
14
you go.
hours.
And nobody really want to pick up,
Not for $10 an hour anyway.
Yeah.
like pick up the poop and whatnot. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So.
Horse poop picker? Really?
Manure. Is that how you call it?
Manure, yeah.
Manure, right? Yeah. They clean up manure.
What are they called? Like manure remediation specialists or something?
Remediation is a different word. They actually use that to like talk about
Fertilizer transport technicians.
yeah, those will be insanely amount of money. Like I'm not kidding. They make a lot of money. They make a killing.
Fertilizer logistician?
Now I also heard that like battery operator, $80,000. I was talking about. Some of them just sit up there and actually play the video game.
I don't want to cut you short, but what's your point? Are you trying to point out that blue collar is not necessarily poor?
No, I think the underwriting theme of Tommy's appearance in our podcast is he's trying to make as many enemies in as many industries in Alberta as possible.
One more time, I'm just a working man. I'm actually a good person,
Well, it's all nuance, right? It's all nuance. So, no, it's amazing what people can make up there. I was talking with somebody yesterday who was telling me about the heyday of the oil industry back in the 80s in Alberta, and how every second day where he was working, they would fly in lobster, and there would just be like barrels of candy bars and pop and stuff just lying around in their mess halls. The food was amazing, the entertainment was amazing. It was just copious amounts of money being spent up there. And then the National Energy Program came in and destroyed our province nearly. And since then, it hasn't quite recovered to such opulence. But, I mean, they get paid and treated really well up there.
But what, though?
It's not resentment. There's sacrifices to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're up there for 3 weeks. You're in your room, which is not much larger than a prison cell, although much better decorated, and you don't get a lot of contact with your friends or family. Then you come down for a week, and
you're away from
right?
civilization, basically. Right?
It's not without sacrifice, and I think they're relatively fairly compensated. So
That's why they're well compensated.
yeah, right. So we're not disparaging people in the oil sands,
No.
right?
If I didn't have to tank a raid team, I would consider it.
And like you said, like you said before, like they have to put their life at risk, doing their job. Like, you know what? I'm just bitter, okay? I'm entitled to be bitter, okay?
Yeah. Why don't you become a working man and go up into the oil sands?
Why don't you do that?
All right. So
I guess he showed you, huh?
because I'm meeting my parents' expectations by being alive and not being in jail. What about you, Mr. Asian F?
I am not. Like, my parents... Okay, my mom...
Okay, hold on. Discuss this whole concept of the Asian F. Not everybody understands.
Okay, sorry. Let me actually explain. Yeah, Asian Fs is an idea describing some Asians. They don't meet their parents' expectation or their society, their community expectation. And so that's kind of what they call Asian F. And again, a lot of... that's kind of the general thinking, right? Asian parents force their pressure their kids study hard, go to cram school, learn piano and this and that. And if the kids do not perform well, they
What's
fail.
well?
As in 100%.
Right. So
I'll give you an example. In my calculus 3 exam, I get a 98%. My parents like, why don't you get 100%? Like, what's wrong here? So that's basically an example of an Asian F.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if I manage not to fail out of a course, my parents are happy. No, I'm not. That's not entirely true, but it's
Well, you see,
a much wider. I mean,
I actually
going
have,
through high school and whatnot, my parents were quite happy if I maintained a B average.
see, I actually thought about it, and I think the whole idea is that Asian parents, and again, I think I actually speak it in a very positive way. They see their they love their children by investing into their children education and their life. Okay, and if the children are not doing well, they feel that they're not really providing to the kids, and so I think basically that's kind of the whole idea behind the idea of Asian life. Okay, so yeah, my parents always wanted me to finish university, which I did, and then they want me to do a master's degree. I'm doing it. I'm sure the next step is a PhD.
No.
I don't want to do that. I don't think I have the grade for that either.
No.
But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the idea. My mom always wanted me to be an accountant, and my dad always wanted me to be an engineer.
So no matter what, you're just going to be a disappointment to one of them.
Yep.
I think my mom wanted me to be unemployed and... I mean, sorry, employed and not in jail. Anything beyond that was a bonus.
Well, I think your mom wanted you to be a social worker at one point.
Well, maybe. I did social work for a bit. I went to school and...
What about Dougie?
It's Ducky.
No.
Ducky.
You sound like you're saying Dougie.
Dougie.
Which is a dance.
Oh, really? Anyway, what about Ducky?
Yeah. How have you disappointed your parents, sir?
I don't believe in God.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah,
really?
that's right. Your mom listens to this podcast, too, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, I don't know. She listened to the first 2 or 3, but I haven't heard any feedback from her since then. So,
Well, hey,
I don't
Miss
know.
Ducky, if you're listening, then post on his Facebook and say, I love you, son.
Yeah.
You heathen.
Here's pictures of cats.
But
That's pretty, like, I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest disappointment that my parents have in me is the fact that, like, my mom is like a hardcore Pentecostal, evangelical-y type. And my dad was raised in a cult, basically. And even though my dad broke free and came out into the real world and had his own trials and tribulations when it came to that, he still sort of has this underlying... He's convinced in the heart of his hearts, I think, that it is his responsibility as a God-fearing man to make sure that his children are set on the right path. And the fact that my brother's gay and that I am an open atheist says to him that he is a failure, I think. And that he will be held to account by God at the end of time for that failing.
Right.
Right?
That's a hard position to put yourself in.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why people do that.
You know what? I think we...
And of course my mom just thinks I'm retarded. She's like, don't worry, one day God will open your eyes. And I'm like, uh-huh.
Well, I think parents actually put that pressure on their kids to do what they actually couldn't do in their own, or what they have accomplished, if you will, and beyond. I think that's probably what the...
Well, yeah, I think every parent kind of hopes that their children will have a better life than they had.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of the times that they'll work hard in order to provide a better life for their children than they had. Alright, boys, I think it's time to wrap it up. Let's talk about North Korea next week, though. I really want to talk about North Korea.
Okay.
So let's talk about North Korea. And I'm putting it in episode 11, so we are now stuck talking about it in episode 12.
Darn you. Your mischievous Machiavellian McDonald ways. I was trying for alliteration, it didn't work. So,
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
that's not how it works.
Oh. No, I just want to
Stop
say...
trying to be in charge.
Yeah.
Sit down, be quiet. Go get a
Okay,
pickaxe,
I know you
Mr.
listen to
Working
this podcast.
But I just want to say goodbye to people, just in case I don't ever come back. So, bye-bye.
So, I have a thing. You're ruining my thing.
I am so sorry. Did I just ruin it? Okay.
I don't know if we should have him back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look
All
at this
right.
little tyrant.
All right.
Yeah,
Chairman
it's like
Tommy.
I know he's like, look, I have an avenue with which to. I've got a soapbox now. I'm gonna use it.
I am still a working man,
Oh.
so I could be a chairman working Tommy.
God. Any final thoughts or parting shots, Ducky?
Sad Bob's gone. I hope things work out better for him. He did make a allusion to YouTube, saying that he may, make responses to our video or our audio as a YouTube response. So we'll see if anything comes of that. We are looking for more indie music. If you guys have, artists or you are an artist, I'm looking at you, Maya. Let us know if we can steal some of your music and throw it at the end of our show.
Or, you know what, if you see stuff that is going around in your community, think is kind of fun, just let us know about it. Like Dumb Ways to Die was something that came about because people liked it, and
Oh, I love that.
like
the skeleton. Woo! Anyway, never mind.
So yeah, if there's music that you like or that you hear of, you don't even have to know the person. We'll get in touch with them, as we often do. So yeah.
So
And thanks to Gunnarolla for Canadian Please, which was on our last episode.
Yeah, we don't know what we're putting in this one. We haven't found anything yet, but we'll find something. So we'll try to find something.
my final thought is, yay, go working man.
Okay.
No respawn. Okay, fine.
/ eye roll.
All right.
And I'd ask you what your parting shots were, but I think you made them all throughout the course of the podcast. I really appreciate having you on it,
Thank you.
Tommy. And Ducky, as always, we have a Facebook group now, and I've been told by people to ask you all to go to iTunes and write reviews and rate us and stuff, because apparently that helps get the word out. So if you subscribe via iTunes, please write a review and do so regularly. We'll ask you to do so regularly. I guess it resets every couple of months or every couple of episodes or something. So we've created a Facebook webpage, which would be facebook.com/hardlyqualified, and at least I think that's what it is. It's linked from hardlyqualified.ca anyway. So if you want to have just more generic discussion, you find it easier to chat, whatever, want to know about episode postings, it's all going to be there. So it's going to be, we've eliminated our forums on the website, and we're going to use Facebook for just general discussion. And I think that's a much better way to do it.
Everybody uses Facebook anyways.
Yeah, so the hardlyqualified.ca will be more the official site. If you have comments about specific episodes, you can definitely go to the show notes and talk about it there. It doesn't matter how you choose to engage with us. As always, we will respond. Many of you can attest to that. Many of you haven't bothered trying, and you really, really, really should, because if you're listening to us consistently, we're a lot less irritating in text than we are. And to Bob, Rob, whatever, it was a pleasure having you on. I think you helped set us up for success and have given us a lot to run with. We'll miss you. We hope to see you in the forums, and of course we'll still talk to you privately and everything. It was a pleasure, buddy, and good luck in the future. And with that, we'll leave you with this really great piece of indie music. Seeing as this is Rob's kind of last official appearance as a host, sort of, on Hardly Qualified, I figured that it would be really good to have The Raven. If you guys are familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, one of my favorite authors, everything you absolutely need to know about death and dying you can learn from The Raven. And Omnia, who's a pagan band actually, has put The Raven to music, and it's absolutely beautiful and haunting. And that's what we're going to end with in tribute to our dear friend. Thank you. See you next week.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, Suddenly, there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping, tapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in a bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. Presently, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Merely this, and nothing more." Out into the darkness peering long, I stood there wandering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is someone at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open wide I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Eris just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Soon that ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim and ancient raven, wandering on the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on this night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Now the raven sitting lonely on that placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have gone before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Once more on the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy on to fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. Prophets said I a thing of evil, prophets still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempests tossed the air ashore. Desolate yet all undaunted on this desert island, chanted on this home by horror haunted. Tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophets said I a thing of evil, prophets still if bird or devil, by that heaven stretched above us, by that God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp her air and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. That word or sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Now the raven never flitting, still is sitting on the path bust of Eris, just above my chamber door, and his eyes of all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor will be lifted.
Thank you for listening to Hardly Qualified. Our website can be found at hardlyqualified.ca, and there you can download episodes, leave comments, and check references and links mentioned in the shows. The hosts are on Twitter. Will is at Will Connor, Rob is at Theology Writer, and Ducky is at AngryDuck_HQ. They can also be reached by email at will, rob, or angryduck@hardlyqualified.ca. All music, unless otherwise specified, is from the game EVE Online and is property of CCP Games. The music can be found at community.eveonline.com/downloads/music. No copyright infringement is intended. The podcast is recorded on Saturday afternoons and scheduled for download the following Friday, which can also be found on iTunes. Thank you, and tune in next week.